Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is 2 o'clock and I hereby call to order the July 17, 2024 meeting of the City of Prescott General Plan Review Committee. Board members present, please state present when I call your name. Terry Sapio, present. Don Michaelman.
Present.
Tom Hutchinson.
Present.
Andre Carmen. Not here. Okay. Mary Fredrickson.
Here.
Ralph Hess.
Present.
Jim Huffman.
Present.
Rod Moyer.
He may be late.
Okay. J.D. Greenberg.
Here, present.
Okay. James McCarver.
Not here.
Not here. Okay. Tom Riley.
Present.
Okay. And we have Mayor Philgood just came in, and Council Liaison Ted Gambogi is here. And is Lois here?
She's on vacation.
She's on vacation. Okay, so we got the mayor and Ted Gambogi. This is an open meeting, open public meeting, and is being recorded by the city. The proceedings are being televised by representatives of the public media. The public, local, cable, and/or radio stations may also be rebroadcast. The number of board members present is 9. I see Andre just came in. And we're still missing, Rod might be coming in, so maybe James, you said might be coming in, right?
Rod might.
Or Rod, okay. So we have 9 present. It will require 5 votes for a majority. All parties wishing to be heard, including committee members, are required to state their name prior to speaking in order to ensure proper recordation. Members of the public are required to state their name and address for the record so that we may know who is speaking and to be able to contact them at a later date if necessary. All right, we have a call to the public. Tammy.
The City of Prescott welcomes public engagement, and residents may comment and address the committee on matters not included on the agenda during the call of the public. Even though this one we do have public commenting on general things about the plan. Please complete a speaker card and submit it to the city's staff prior to the meeting being convened. Speakers are limited to 4 minutes. The call of the public is limited to 40 minutes. I hope we don't go that far. Citizens are limited to addressing the committee 4 times regarding the same topic. Pursuant to ARS 38431-1H, members of the committee may not discuss items that are specifically identified on the agenda, and therefore interaction will be limited to responding to criticism, requests to staff to investigate and report on the matter, or requests that the matter be scheduled for a future agenda. First, we have Mike Parrish.
Hi, Mike Parrish. I forgot about this. Hi, Mike Parrish, Chairman Sundog Disconnect, 3180 Bar Circle A Road in Prescott. The reason why I'm here today is to talk about the 2025 draft plan for the city of Prescott. There's a mention in here on page 39 that what SIMPO has, they're planning going forward, specifically their 2045 plan that was made in 2020. The 2020 study, it says on page 40 of the draft of the Prescott City General Plan, recommends a new regional transportation corridors such as Great Western Boulevard, Santa Fe Loop, Sundog Connector between Prescott Lakes Parkway and State Route 69 and Airport Loop Road. Although the general plan doesn't specifically mention the Sundog being recommended, it's saying that SIMPO is recommending it. And the problem that we have with that is future politicians can come along and say, well, SIMPO recommended this in their 2045 plan. And yet the city of Prescott, the mayor, a lot of you, city council, have come out strongly against this. So why in the world would this even be mentioned in there, that SIMPO recommends it, if the city doesn't want it? And this is a City of Prescott general plan. The other thing that's laughable is in their recommendation of the 2045 plan that SIMPO did, they said that the Sundog Connector would cost $27.72 million. That's what they said. A 2045 plan, they said in 2020, and yet no mention of the study that was just done that it was $151,500,000 that did not include wildlife mitigation, was one of the most strongest objections to this road, or any noise abatement costs, probably driving the cost of this connector to $200 million. But it's going to lead anybody coming in the future to believe, if they read this, $27.7 million. It's not even mentioned, the secondary study. So we think the reference to this study should be removed, the Sundog connector, or at the very least, reference should be made to the study that was just done that shows that that number, this study from 2020 for the 2045 SIMPO plan, is defunct. Anyway, how many people want to have any mention of the Sundog removed from the 2025 general plan? If you can just raise your hand here, please. Okay? All right, thank you very much. Yeah, I thought it was a souvenir.
No souvenir.
Deb Thalassitis. Thalassitis.
Okay, Deb Thalassitis, Meadowbrook Road, Prescott, Arizona. I'm here to follow up on a conversation you had last week, and I understand it may be agendized next meeting on the 31st, so I'm hoping you'll take my comments into consideration. Last time you talked about the general plan amendment process, and I want to do a brief history lesson. I'm sure Mr. Gambogi will remember this. It was one of the first topics this committee talked about when I was on the committee. Everyone raised a concern that it seemed like the general plan amendment process as it exists in the current plan doesn't actually provide for any actual amendments. In fact, I can't find any. I think staff confirmed there's never been any major plan amendments. There's been minor plan amendments. The current process that's in the plan that's being forwarded to the 2025 plan has been in place since at least 1998. I think a lot of things have changed. But what struck me about the conversation last time is the question, what do other communities do? Is Prescott doing something similar to other communities? So I went out and I looked. I looked at the 10 communities that were bigger than Prescott and the 10 that were smaller, and the answer is nobody does what we do. The purpose of the major plan amendment is to maintain the integrity of the policies in the plan. I took a look at our current major plan amendment. There's 3 breakdowns. And the first one is any zoning that would require a major plan amendment if the zoning or the parcel involved is greater than 40 acres and has more than 400 single-family residential dwelling units within 1,320 feet. 1,320 feet is about 3.5 football fields. I am racking my brain to figure out where in Prescott do we have 40 acres with 400 single-family only homes.
Deborah, actually, that's been changed to 2,640 feet. It's been changed from a quarter mile to a half mile.
Okay, thank you. I was reading the old plan. One of the most interesting things that I came across was 2 communities that are fairly close in size to Prescott, and that was Oro Valley and Marana. And they both use a matrix approach, and they have floors where if something is below, say, 5 or 10 acres, or in the case of commercial, it might be higher, it might be 60 acres, it's not subject to a major plan amendment. But they have a matrix that says if you're going from this type of zoning to this type of zoning, you either have a major plan amendment, a minor plan amendment, or no amendment. One of the things I was struck by is that they're able to protect open space by saying it's a major plan amendment if you want to change open space or if you want to change recreation. So it does a purpose. It serves a purpose. It implements policies. So then I started to think about, well, how does this affect growth? I don't know how informed you all are about Arizona's growth, but Marana has been recognized for years as one of the fastest growing communities in Arizona, one of the fastest growing in the United States. For example, between 2010 and 2020, Marana grew at 48.5%, while Prescott grew at 16.13%. This is Census Bureau statistics. So actually putting some reasonable criteria in place for major plan amendments is not going to limit growth. It's going to make the plan do what you all have sat here for 2 years trying to make it do. And I would ask that before the next meeting, you reconsider the language for major plan amendment and put something realistic in place, or at least have a discussion on the next agenda about something that's more realistic that actually would, in a few rare cases, require major plan amendments. I took the liberty of just making a matrix. It's not, I'm going to give it to, pass it out. I'm going to take a copy. It's just another idea. It's not like I'm saying, oh, it has to be this. But I am asking if you would consider looking at other options. I also wanted to offer, Tammy, that I can send you, most of the general plan amendments from other cities are like 1 to 2 pages. I can send you everything that I have found if you want to distribute it to the committee so they can see what other entities are doing and how different and unusual we are. Thank you.
Yes.
Ralph Hess. Is this a matrix from either Marana or Oro Valley, or one that you?
No, I was going to send all of that to Tammy because there's a couple of communities that use matrices. That was just my own sort of riffing on what one might look like.
All right, thank you.
But I will send her all of, and I've also got Phoenix, Glendale, Gilbert, even the big places. I got kind of curious about how they're doing. Very different from what Prescott is.
Gary Anderson.
All right. Gary Anderson, Chairman, committee members. I live at 845 Flying U Court. I've been here for 27 years. At the previous charter committee meeting, I think Brent Stotler and maybe Tammy had mentioned that the Sundog Connector language was not on that version of the draft. Okay, and that obviously has changed. On page 42 of the current draft, SIMPO's traffic plan mentions Sundog Connector specifically. I chair the Yavapai Hills Sundog Committee. We report to the Board of Directors. As you may know, the majority of residents in Yavapai Hills are opposed to Sundog Connector ever being built. If Sundog Committee language on the current draft must be included, then we need to modify it. Hopefully you'll modify it as a point of record. I'm requesting additional information is included on page 42. Simply number 1, SIMPO's no-build option was recommended for Sundog Connector for the recent study. That was $400,000. Number 2, it's a $150 million minimum prohibitive cost to local taxpayers, not including exits at Yavapai Hills or Diamond Valley, and no improvements to Yavapai Hills or Diamond Valley, which would be part of the project. Number 3, overwhelming community opposition. It's not just Yavapai Hills, it's the overall community. The majority of our folks on the city council are opposed to it. Our mayor's opposed to it. You've heard the reasons multiple times. I think it's very important this information is documented if it has to be in the plan, because 7 or 8 years from now, it might be a new council, a new mayor. Hey, we got this great idea. Let's build this $150 million plus highway. It'll be $200 million by then, but let's build this road to nowhere. So thank you.
Okay, that's all we have for today.
Okay, next we have discussion and action items. Presentation, review, and discussion of the draft 2025 Prescott General Plan. Recommended action is this item is for discussion only. Staff requests input and consensus, but no formal action will be taken. Tammy.
Thank you, Chairman. Members of the committee, Tammy DeWitt, Community Planner. So we're going to start off. So you guys were given a draft of what we have so far of the plan. So I give that to our consultants, and they have reformatted it into the new version. So we wanted to show you. They went through, they had it, their whole team edited it. There was like 3 or 4 people going through, marking edits. So any grammatical, spelling, it's all taken care of. In fact, this is actually their edited draft, pretty much. So we wanted to show you. So this is set up to be a flip book, like we showed you before, that they did in North Carolina. So it's like 2 pages per sheet. So, but they took all our text that we have put together so far, and they have formatted it into this really neat looking document. And it's going to be a flip book like we talked about. They're still looking for some pictures to add to it. So if you have some pictures that you feel represent Prescott, please email them to me and giving us permission to use them, and we will actually reference you that you donated the picture to make sure we have it. But most of these pictures are from our tourism department that the city has rights to, or that the consultants have gone out and taken, which these 2 pictures she did over the weekends.
Ralph?
Ralph Hess. So is the version that we're having put on the screen different than the one that we've been looking at,
No,
the draft that we have?
nope, it's the same text. Just formatted differently, like had we talked about back in November.
But the substance is the same.
Substance is the same. The only thing they did, they updated some of our graphs to make them more consistent, make them look a little better. We're still looking for some to make sure they have the quality, because some of the stuff that we had in the plan isn't going to copy very well. So I'm looking for an example of that. But the way this is set up, the goals are all highlighted. Then the strategies have a little highlight on them. The border around it matches what chapter you're in. So as you go through, you're going to see, and then there'll be tabs up top to where you can go to different chapters. So we just wanted to show you that this is a complete, everything that you have in your binder, this is all on the screen in a different format. But we're pretty excited about this and think it looks really nice. And we think this makes it very easy to read too as you go through it. So we'll make sure you guys are getting a copy of this after our next meeting to make sure that we have everything that you guys corrected through this draft in the final draft. That'll be for the 60-day comment period. That's why we asked you if we could get the binders back at the next meeting with all your comments or corrections. Make sure to note it in here because I'm going to go through all your guys' binders and double check. So scratch out anything bad about staff and okay, and we'll go through and then you guys will get an updated one when we start the 60-day comment period.
Tammy, I'd like to share a general concern that I have, and I think it touches on format.
Okay.
You have to look for the headlines in each of the topics. It doesn't pop. It doesn't come out and immediately tell you what the text says, and I think it should.
Okay.
And I think about the superordinate objectives of this plan. Workforce housing, water supply, traffic congestion due to growth, aging population, on and on and on. And those things don't surface. And the text is the why of what we're doing.
Well, it's text. What we're going to be implementing is the implementation table. All the goals and strategies, that's what's going to be implemented. That's the most important thing out of this document is the goals and strategies, because that's what we're going to be implementing over the next 10 years. The text is just information.
Yeah, so when I think about going through this, the plan in my mind is incomplete because it doesn't speak to the how much questions. It doesn't speak to the 5W2H formula, the whys, the wheres, so we haven't captured all of the essence of the plan.
Okay.
Just general comments.
Okay.
It doesn't pop. There should be an executive summary on each topic that says what this topic says is that we don't have enough water going forward for the next 10 years, or we do have enough water, and here's why. You got to look for that. You got to dig and do the math in your head. And I don't think the general public, frankly, is going to dig deep enough to understand what's really here. And I think the ratification process, to have some real merit, needs to be crystal clear and it needs to pop. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tammy.
Okay.
Continue.
So I just wanted to show you guys that this is what it looks like now. And we're still editing it and adding pictures and going through the text and checking the graphs and stuff to make sure it represents what we wanted it to say. So like there's places for other things to go. And so, but it's all edited. So you don't have to worry about formatting that part of it, spelling, they've gone through all that. So, and make sure it reads correctly, the right tense and everything, so.
What's the size
It's digital. So this is intended to be digital and interactive with the links. And like you click on the map, you can pull up the map and zoom into it. It's supposed to be interactive. That's the whole intent, that it's a digital copy. We'll figure out how to print this. We're still trying to figure that out. But the intent is it to be interactive.
they will produce it?
Yes.
Printable.
Yeah, we'll get a printable version.
We're old schoolers.
Yes.
One of the things that perhaps we can do as part of their formatting is to address some of the concerns that Tom Hutchison pointed out, of making certain things jump off the screen at you, catch your attention. So this has much better option to do that than the simple text format that we're using for today's review. But when you start looking at this, where it says great places, that jumps off the screen at you. If you look at some of the other highlights in there, perhaps those can jump out as well and bring attention to those sections that people should read maybe with more concentration than some of the other sections.
Yeah. George, I'm trying to be constructive with this, and that's how I mean this. It shouldn't be a word game. The general public should be able to read as much as they want and grasp exactly what we're forecasting the city's going to do over the next 10-year period. Okay? It should be crystal clear.
And that's what we're going to go over, is the goals and strategies that we're going to be implementing over or going over the next 10 years. It's not the text. The text is just information.
That's the
But
why.
this is what we're implementing, is the goals and the implementation table, the goals and strategies. So.
Mary?
This is really boring housekeeping stuff, but before we get into the meat, can we have a mention from the chair and a request for a motion to approve the minutes from last?
Oh, we don't have the minutes
don't
on
have
it?
minutes.
There were no,
No, it's not on the agenda because they'll have them for the next meeting.
shame on me. Thank you.
Good catch, though. It's okay. Okay, so why don't we get rid of this and we'll go to the, number 1, resiliency and sustainability goals and strategies. I'm waiting for IT to switch over.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Ralph.
Ralph Hess, I have a general question. When we turn our folders over to you, our binders over to you at the end of the next meeting, and then we see the product that is produced subsequent to that, will we also get the binders back?
Yes.
So we'll be able to compare our notes. All right.
Sure.
And the other thing, a question I have is, in reading through this, I've noticed that some of the suggestions that were made by the public and committee members, or me, are included, and some aren't. So my question is, who's the gatekeeper that's deciding which comments are being put into the draft and which comments provided by public, and I'm sure other committee members, comments, some are in and some are not? Who's the gatekeeper making the decision which comments to include and which ones to omit?
So if there's comments that you've provided and they aren't included, make reference to it and we'll add them in.
The answer is the committee's the gatekeeper. So in your review, if things are missing that you believe the committee has discussed and agreed to include in the plan, now if you discussed a comment and the committee didn't agree to include it in the plan, it's not there. But if we missed something, then it's this committee review now that can tell us that, and we'll make the corrections.
Okay, yeah, Ralph Hess. There were some comments that there was a decision made or a vote taken, and there are many comments that it was just discussed and there was no vote taken. So the reason I'm asking the question is, one, because of my review of this draft, but also what to expect when we get the next version after you go through all of our binders. And of course, I'm not going to know what the other 10 people on this committee have put in their binders. I'm only going to know what I put in my binder. So who's the gatekeeper who's going to decide which of the comments from the 11 of us are going to be, well, Rod will, I'm sure will provide comments. So the 11 of us, which comments are going to be included for us all to review and which are not? Because I'm presuming each of my comments is not going to be in there. And I suspect each of the other 10 people's comments are not going to be in there. Some will be. So my question is, who's the gatekeeper who decides which comments will be included and which ones won't?
I think the council.
Well,
Council's
there's
not,
actually,
this is Ralph Hess. Council's not going to be looking at this between now
Send it
and,
back if they don't like it.
well, yeah, eventually.
that's true, but again, the answer is the same. It's this committee. So if we get comments, written comments from multiple of you, and they either conflict or they agree with one another or whatever, we will put the comments in, and then it is expected that you will reread the document looking at those to verify whether all of those comments you put in are there, all of the comments that Tom Riley put in are there, Andre Carmen's comments are there. Everyone has a responsibility to say, I made this comment and it's not there, and then we'll correct it. Most of the time, we're going to catch it ahead of time, but we miss things now and then. We have other jobs too. So it's important that you read it thoroughly and tell us when something is left out.
Mr. Chairman, Tom Riley. I think that, George, you said something earlier that I think is very germane to the process. I think Ralph brings up a good point. I think that the main thing is that if just because I make a comment doesn't mean it should be in the general plan. If I make a comment like, we should have this, and everybody kind of looks around, you do sort of a consensus as to what the committee is doing. If the consensus of the committee is such that, yes, that should be in there, then fine. If the consensus of the committee is no, it shouldn't be in there, then it's not in there. So I think as we go through the process today and we start to make our comments for various things that we'd like to change, I think we should look around to see if there's a consensus of the committee to see whether or not that's a good change or a bad change or don't bother change. That's my 2 cents so far.
Okay,
Tammy, one more comment. Before we hop into this, we got 13 pages of introduction.
I was just going to go back to that.
What does it say? What does it tell us? What does it tell the citizens of this city? I mean, I question the value of some of the data in there.
You have to put something in here that basically describes the community. And to try to describe Prescott in 13 pages, I think they've pared it out pretty well. They maybe left out some things, but by and large, I did read it. And I thought, I probably wouldn't include that. But somebody who's just reading this plan for the first time, somebody who's just moved here, they need to have some of that background in there and some of that generalized information that gives them some background. Not everybody knows this community as well as you do.
I did it in 6 ticks points. I'll read them to you. 2% growth, 65 plus population dominates, not many kids, equal split between males and females, nice climate, and that's about it.
I think I, for one, would like a little bit more fleshing out of those points.
I just wonder the value of 13 pages of blah, 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 blah.
I found it valuable.
Yeah.
I agree with Tom. I like the introduction, and I think for many people. Well, I'm sorry.
Too many Toms.
Tom Riley. Tom number 1, or I don't know who wants to be number 2 or who wants to be number 1. Anyway, I agree with Tom Riley. This is going to be read by many people visiting Prescott for the first time, and maybe people thinking about moving here. And this introduction is a good description of the city and where the city's been, where it's going, and I like the introduction personally.
Mr. Chairman, Jim Huffman.
Jim.
Besides that, if people don't want to read it, they can skip over it.
Right.
I think this is one of those moments where we should probably get a consensus of the committee as to whether or not the introduction is appropriate or inappropriate.
So is there anything in the introduction anyone feels that needs to be changed or updated or edited or added? Ralph?
Yeah, Ralph Hess. I've just made some comments on here that are related to vocabulary or a question about something that's made, so I'm not going to go through
Okay.
that now.
Yeah, no.
You'll be able to see it when you look at my binder,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Mary
Mary?
Frederickson, just within the introduction, I know there was some discussion, particularly by me, in regard to some language that was offered up by the MLK Justice, I'm not sure the full name of their group, that I had objection to, and it seemed like there was some discussion. Other people were uncomfortable with some of the language, maybe not as uncomfortable as I was, but nonetheless, the language that's in this text is essentially what was in the introduction as was first brought to us. So I don't know if it doesn't look like any of the comments that were made were incorporated within this draft or not. So I don't know, Tammy, maybe you could tell us whether or not
I think
any
I
of
can
the
answer
comments
that,
made,
Mary.
whether or not my comments or not.
I think that if I remember correctly from that meeting, the number one concern was that the statement as written by the Prescott MLK group was pushing for a city ordinance against discrimination, which is, who defines what's discrimination and what isn't. And we had examples of the lawsuits in Colorado, such as the Masterpiece Bakery that went all the way to the Supreme Court. And it was the desire of, it seemed, most of the people to not put Prescott into the position of having to defend a city ordinance that may be unconstitutional. So what we finally did was we changed the wording where it says, as such, the city does not condone discrimination, when the original text from the MLK group was, as such, the city will not condone discrimination. And the idea was to say that the city does not condone discrimination is the city hasn't, it doesn't, it won't, and basically requires no city ordinance because there's really no changes to the policy of the city of Prescott. So that we really just changed the one word from will to does. Does that work for you, Mary, or do you want more changes?
It doesn't work for me, but I made my pitch earlier, and
How would you word it? Do you have notes in there if you?
I actually gave much thought between then and now, and I ended up with a whole bunch of thoughts, which
Okay.
maybe was more for my own edification than anybody else's. But I had several thoughts or suggestions that would make it more palatable from my perspective. One thing in particular, the way it is written indicates some involvement by the city as far as individual actions between citizens of the area. And I don't think that's an appropriate thing for the city to be involved in if somebody has a complaint that a shopkeeper shooed them out of their store because there were a couple of guys holding hands and that made them uncomfortable, so they shoot them out of the store. That would certainly be discriminatory and harassment. But if that couple came to the city and said, hey, you don't condone harassment, but that shopkeeper over there just made us feel bad because we were holding hands, do something about that. Well, no, we don't condone it. Well, that's kind of empty virtue signaling language then, if there's not going to be any involvement by the city in putting teeth to does not condone. So in thinking about this, I would want to see this language indicate that it is in regard to the city, staff, policy, actions, does not discriminate or harass against the whole litany of protected classes that is listed here, some of which are not recognized legally as protected classes. And there's just language within here. I don't know if discrimination is indicating the legal definition of discrimination versus something more broadly. Certainly harassment can be open to interpretation. So what does that mean? Besides do not condone, what does that mean? Discrimination, harassment. I don't know what spiritual practice means by the people who offered up this language. So it's just so vague and open to interpretation. I'm uncomfortable with it being applied across the board as opposed to looking at what the city does or doesn't do. That I could get behind. I would want to have removed as a protected class gender expression or identity. It's such a hot button, unsettled issue, both legally and culturally. A federal court just came out with an injunction against the current administration's attempt to rewrite Title IX law to include gender within the subheading of sex, preventing discrimination in education settings for gender expression, essentially trans individuals. That is so unsettled. I don't see that that's appropriate to include within the laundry list of protected classes.
Do you have a text that would work for you?
Sure. From my perspective, I would eliminate the laundry list of protected classes and just end that sentence to the extent that it needs to be in there at all after the word harassment. And if the laundry list was going to be included, I don't know why sex was not included within the laundry list. That's long been recognized as one of the keystone protected classes under the law against along race, sex, disability. Those have long been on the books. So I don't know why sex was not included in there. Certainly sexual orientation and gender expression was, but not sex, as in man versus woman.
So if I understand you correctly, that last sentence, the way you would like it to read, would read, as such, the city does not condone discrimination or harassment, period.
By city, staff, policy, or action, because that just puts it to the city. And then that's the area that the city can act upon. If two individuals not related to the city have some conflict, the city really does not have any basis for stepping forward and getting into the middle of that. So just saying we don't condone it is just kind of empty fluff words without the ability to intervene. Where they could intervene, the city would be city staff policies or actions. So if it were me writing this, I would say yes, as such, the city does not condone discrimination or harassment within or by city staff policies or actions. And I think that would cover all that needs to be covered.
How does the rest of the committee feel about that? Ted?
This all started because and I'm going to defer to Andre and Ralph in this comment. This all started with an effort, or not an effort, but a ruling down in Mesa that the city manager could assess fines for discrimination. And I don't think we want to get into the world of litigation. We leave that up to the legal system. So I think Mary's comments about narrowing it down, that the city won't, I think is an expression that we don't discriminate and we treat people as people without getting into the detail of what's included in that category.
So Jim McCarver, I'm sure the city HR
they have all kind of policies against discrimination. And so I think that explains a lot. My feeling is we should keep it pretty general. I wouldn't want to say vague, but I think, this plan is not supposed to delineate every little specific situation that can come up. We have a general philosophy, and my feeling is we should leave it at that.
Really should say that again. You're saying leave it the way it is, or you're agreeing with Mary?
No, I think we should keep it relatively general, like it's expressed in the plan right now.
Without listing all the different.
I think the way it's written now, I think that's good. I think it's.
And what Mary is recommending is that the sentence just go, does not condone discrimination or harassment by city policies or staff or action. Okay. So go ahead, Ralph.
The one thing I agree with Mary is I think sex should be included in that list of items, of classes. And this came out of the view that the city of Prescott holds itself out as everybody's hometown. I mean, everybody's hometown is not a legal definition. It's not any type of legal standard that has to be met. It's a description of the fact that city of Prescott welcomes all people. And it was in that tenure that this was presented to this committee by the Martin Luther King Jr. Committee. And in fact, when this draft was presented to the committee to be looked at, I was contacted by Jim Jim, to ask me if I thought he needed to be here today. And I said, no, I think this matter has been resolved because during our last meeting, as Chairman Sapio suggested, that they changed the language from will not condone discrimination to will not. And they accepted that.
Will not to does not.
Right, to does not. I don't agree that, or I don't recall it, the issue being surrounded by whether an ordinance would arise out of that. That's something I think is independent of this general plan process. And so if the legal department decided to draft an ordinance, fine. I mean, that's the type of thing. Scott still has an ordinance that protects these classes from discrimination. So that's an independent issue in my view. But the reason that this was brought forward and was made clear to us by those members of the committee that presented it is that they have experienced discrimination within this community. And they've observed discrimination in this community. I've observed it. And so the idea was to put forth in the general plan something that fleshes out the idea that Prescott is everybody's hometown and that everyone would feel welcomed in this town. And so I'm in favor of the language as we settled at the previous meeting. I would add sex, though. I agree with Mary. I think sex should be included in that. But that's my position, or my feeling on it.
There you go. Andre.
I wasn't able to make the previous meeting. I think I was in court or out of town, one of the two. I think we need to back up a little bit. And I think we need to take out the action verbs in here. So that whole paragraph has a couple of action verbs that I don't think apply to the city. And I don't think it's proper for the city to take the action that is implied. So it says in the first sentence, Prescott is a city that values the quality of life for all its inhabitants and embraces. I don't think the city embraces, or any city should be embracing. So I would put a period after inhabitants. The next sentence,
Say that again.
I would put a period after the word inhabitants and delete and embraces the cultural diversity of its residents. So I don't see that as proper or accurate. The next sentence is after the word vibrant, I would put a period and delete is an asset that we can all cherish for the same reason. The next sentence says Prescott is therefore committed to ensuring that all people feel welcome. It's not the role of the city to do that. I don't think it does it. So I would delete that also. That's all I have.
Any other comments on this?
This reminds me of Orwell's book, The Animal Farm, where all animals are created equal, some more than others. And that's the problem, the some more than others part.
Okay. Don?
Don Michaelman. I really don't have a problem with this paragraph at all. Probably the only suggestion I would have is when you start listing different things such as race, sexual orientation, and so forth, you're going to leave something out.
Exactly.
But maybe instead of saying based upon such as, and not try to list everything you can think of, but give an example of what could be for discrimination and so forth.
Any other comments? Okay, so what we have right now, we have basically three ideas. The first idea is leave it away the way it is. The second idea is Mary's idea to, when you get to the line where it says the city does not condone discrimination or harassment, period. And then no need to list all the different classes. And the third idea is Andre's, where we take out the action verbs such as embraces, we take out anything where the city is actually promoting an active action when it comes to discrimination. So we have three different ideas here. Mary?
Just to repeat, besides eliminating the laundry list, I would suggest limiting that last sentence to city, staff, policy, or actions, not looking across the board to every single person that's within our city limits doing or not doing the bad thing.
So, okay, so actually that last sentence, after discrimination or harassment by city policy, city staff, or city actions.
I agree with Andre in terms of some of the verbs there. And how is this city going to ensure that all people within its limits feel welcome? We could perhaps strive to, but we can't ensure that. So
It occurs to me again that we're into the how question, that we haven't addressed a lot of that in this plan. That's what you're saying.
Okay. So JD, you're agreeing with Andre that by saying the city is going to ensure, it's like, how can the city do that? That's an action that the city really cannot do unless it gets into the weeds of a city ordinance of some kind.
You know, and again, JD, we live in a litigious society, and if someone just decided, you know, you haven't fulfilled your statement to ensure that I feel welcome. I mean, I'm not an attorney, but I don't know if they could then file something against the city saying you haven't made me happy and feel welcome. So I don't think we should. I think we need to put in there that we will strive to make people feel welcome, but I don't think we're going to ensure it.
Okay. Don? Oh. That
Mr.
stand. JD, grab the stand.
Why?
Mr. Chairman, sounds like you have 3 recommendations.
Right. Basically,
And we are 30 minutes in discussion on page 1, paragraph 2.
well, this is obviously a
It's
sensitive
important.
subject.
It's important, but I think the way perhaps to bring it to some resolution is to see if there's a consensus
Sure.
over one or
And
the
that's what I
other
was
of
going
those 3.
to recommend next is that we have 3 different ideas here. Keep it the way it is. Modify it slightly by saying that the city policy, you know, the city does not condone discrimination by policy action, or, you know, and then the third one is Andre's, which is essentially removing all of the verbs that imply some kind of action by the city. So we have idea 1, idea 2, and idea 3. Let's see a show of hands on each of the 3 different ideas.
Mr. Chair, before we do that, I think that my idea can be reconciled with Mary's idea.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive at all.
Okay. So how would you recommend that be done?
Just
Just go with Mary's idea is what you're saying?
no. Remove all the action verbs, and then all she wanted to change was the last part. Was
Okay. So it's a combination of the 2 then?
yes.
So
Right.
now there's
Okay.
2.
All right.
Yeah,
So
JD,
now we're
that's
down
what
to
I was
2
going to
ideas.
suggest too, because I think
Okay.
that taking out some of that
All right.
language in the last sentence
That makes it
probably will
pretty easy
just
then.
keep it simple.
Okay, so we have just 2 ideas now. Keep it the way it is, or combine Mary's suggestions with Andre's suggestions, and that's plan number 2. So should we do a show of hands or what?
A show of hands to keep it the way it is. 1, 2, 3, 3. So to change it based on the comments that have been suggested. Okay, so we'll change it.
Okay.
And I got it all marked on here. Okay. Anything else in the introduction? Nothing else in the introduction. Okay, we're going to go on to the next chapter then. Resiliency and sustainability. So we're going to start with goal 1 on page 15.
Before you do that, Tammy, would you quickly, if possible, summarize what this chapter says?
Oh, come on, Tom.
Give me the key takeaways. Before we get into what we're going to do, tell me what does it say?
Yeah.
Make it easy.
We've all read it. Yeah.
They haven't read it.
Well, they have.
Tom, what do you, this first chapter, you think it's too long, is what you're trying to say?
I don't think. I think it's
resiliency and sustainability.
I think it needs to be simplified. And up front, again, I'm repeating myself, but up front needs to be a simple statement that says, we got a workforce housing problem. We don't know what that looks like. And we're going to work hard to solve that problem.
Okay, that is addressed later on in the general plan toward the back. I forget what chapter that is, but it goes into detail on workforce housing.
I've read that too.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll start on goal 1. promote a balanced community with a diversity and residential types and prices by encouraging infill development of higher density development, single-family and multifamily homes.
So why?
So we already reviewed all these chapters. So all we're reviewing right now is to make sure that we addressed all your guys' concerns as we already addressed everything that you guys are reviewing right now. So if there's something that we missed or that you want explained a little bit better, that's fine. Please tell us. But we've already gone through all these chapters. And why was it you didn't address this before?
I'm not trying to be obstructive here.
No, I understand.
I'm trying
just
to put myself
understand.
in the seat of a citizen that's going to try to ratify this. Okay? That's where I'm coming from right now.
Okay.
Okay?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to address that. I've had the opportunity to speak to several different organizations about the general plan. And what I've said is that the general plan is going to be about 100 some odd pages. Most of those pages are going to have information on it that some of you will know about, some of you won't know about. If you're not sure about it, read it. And if you really just want to get to the grit of the matter, just go to the goals and the strategies and review those, because that's where the meat of the plan is. And as far as I'm concerned, resiliency and sustainability is described very well in the 3 paragraphs that precede the goals. And to sit here and to try to redo and format that, I'm not willing to do that today.
I agree with Tom Riley. I mean, this is 3-paragraph introduction to resiliency and sustainability, and I think it's well explained. In fact, when I read through this thing, I have to congratulate the city staff, Tammy and George and Chelsea. I think you guys did a great job. 99% Tammy. Tammy did a wonderful job. In fact, I was reading through this, and it's like, gee, I don't have any changes. Any ideas? I mean, I saw a bunch of typographicals, but not as many as your people have already discovered. I thought that reading through this, I thought, boy, this is going to be a quick, easy meeting because this all looks fantastic. So I think we need to concentrate on goals and strategies, and do you see the need to make any changes to the goals and strategies? And that's where we're at in this meeting. Don.
Don Michaelman. Tammy?
Okay.
Tammy?
Yeah.
And check with my fellow commission members. Do we need to have Tammy read all these out again, or just go say, all right, are there any things dealing with this? Because she was starting to read it there, and I
know.
don't. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So so let me make this easy then.
So
under resiliency and sustainability, are there any goals and strategies that you want to talk about and to clarify?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes, there are.
Okay, thank you.
Who are you?
Tom Riley here. Strategy 1.1, and this may be one of those things that your editors catch,
Okay.
but the buzzword affordable on workforce affordable housing, the Workforce Housing Committee has wanted us to use the words attainable as opposed to affordable. So that's the only thing that I would make a suggestion on.
Sounds good.
May I continue?
Yep.
Okay. Strategy 1.2, opportunities for grant supplemented development of single homes. I would take out the word supplemented because the city right now is not in a position, nor may it be in a position, to contribute taxpayer dollars to that. And this word supplemented indicates that that's a possibility. So I would do away with the word supplemented.
Oh, it was grant supplemented.
Grant supplemented development. So that means if it's a grant supplemented development, what is the grant supplementing?
Okay.
I just want some clarity on that.
What number was that?
Strategy
1.2.
On page 16.
Moving right along.
Okay.
Prepare a conceptual housing plan for the city of Prescott to include full needs assessment, blah, blah. How about the city of Prescott and partners?
Which one are you at?
I'm at goal 2, first sentence after the city of Prescott, put in and partners. Look for to include full needs assessments, blah, 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 because there are several workforce housing committees that have been splintered off, and there are a number of nonprofits in the community right now that are trying to be developed to be able to include and address workforce housing. So I think and partners makes it sense that the city will look for others to work, we'll work with others.
Chair,
That was on strategy 2.1, correct?
Tammy, just,
Okay.
Goal 2.
Chair, just, Mary Frederickson, just to have things flow smoother and maybe faster. When people bring up their thoughts for modification, if anybody on the committee, I'm just suggesting, disagrees or would not want that change, they should speak up. And silence is complicity on this committee. Okay, that's it.
So Tammy,
I think, Mary, you're correct. And so far, I'm not seeing any objections to the suggestions that Tom Riley just made in these.
I have a suggestion.
Strategies.
Goal 2.
Go ahead, Tom.
Who is responsible for that?
Community Development and the Housing Committee.
Should you say?
We have,
Should we say that up front?
no.
No, that's going to be, go ahead.
If you look on the screen, this is our, so just so you know, this is our implementation table that we have on the screen. This is a living document that will be updated all the time. And this is where we're going to show who's responsible, what the timeline is, and what's the complete date. This is at the end of the plan.
And included in there is the finance question? How much it's going to cost to do this? Is that a column in there?
And that's
Should be in
something
there?
could be under responsibility, be council action, or council funding or something. That's something that will be put in here. Who's responsible? What department, or what require council funding or other things? That's stuff that we could put on here that we're tracking as we're implementing plan. That's why the goals and strategies are what's the most important thing, because that's what we're implementing the next 10 years.
So we don't think the citizens need to know who specifically is going to implement these actions?
Not this time.
It's on there. Tom, if
It
you look
will
at the
be.
chart,
It
it
will
says
be. It will
responsibility,
be.
and it will say what city department
Then it
is
needs to have a
responsible for
footnote here that says, go to table 17 and look and see who's going to do that.
It's under the implementation section at the back of the plan.
We don't have that in our copy right now, but it will be in the next.
You have implementation on the last page of your plan, and then this table will be included in that.
As I said earlier,
But we're
when we first started
building
out,
it.
this plan is incomplete as it's written today.
That's correct. Right. If on page 113 is the last paragraph, the last page of this entire document, implementation, it says the matrix below is intended to be used as a tool that assigns stakeholders
shit.
timeframes and a comment section to each goal and strategy. The matrix isn't there because it wasn't completed yet.
Maybe.
Okay.
Just a quick,
Yeah.
just a quick comment about the process. The plan's not complete. The purpose of these meetings is to complete the plan so that we can show it to the public for the 60-day period. But we can't have it all done all at once and hand it to you and expect to get through a meeting. As we can see today, we get too easily sidetracked. These will come to you and you'll get the implementation plan. It may not list all of the responsible agencies yet. That may be something that's part of the ongoing process as we get through the 60-day period and before we take it to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their review and approval. So there's still a lot of additional iterations of this plan that you're going to see.
Right. Thanks, George. So, Tom, I hope that answers your question, that what you're trying to see is going to be in the plan. It just isn't in there right now, but it will be. And if you look at the screen, it'll be something like that. It will show what the goals are, what the strategies are, who's responsible for accomplishing them, what's the timeline for them to be accomplished, and then there's a column for completion date. Has it been completed or not completed? If it's been completed, when was it completed?
And the intent is accountability.
Yes.
Yes, right, exactly. Okay.
That's why if we didn't review this text and we just review the goals and strategies, that's the most important thing out of this whole plan is the goals and strategies, because that's what we are implementing. Thank you.
Okay.
Goal 2.
Andre.
Andre Carmen, on goal 2, to address Mr. Riley's point, I think the city of Prescott reference was about the geographical area. Is that correct?
I think it's a legal entity.
So the conceptual housing plan, though, is for the geographic area?
It does both.
Both?
The city government is partially responsible. We've actually already got a grant, and we have a requirement of that grant, paid for that grant, to do an assessment. So the city's doing an assessment. The adding additional partnership comment, I think, is great because we have additional partners who want to participate. And I think acknowledging them in here is a good way to do that. But it actually addresses both the corporate limits and the city government.
Okay.
Okay. Next.
Strategy 2.4. Fourth sentence down, about halfway in, reduction in parking requirements for highly desirable housing types. How about we put in attainable housing types? Highly desirable. I really like to have a 5,000 square foot house downtown Prescott and like do away with, rent out half of it and do away with my parking. So highly desirable is a subjective term.
Sure. Attainable. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a comment on 2.4. It's Andre Carmen. I think we should add in due to recent developments with the council, and we should reference development impact fees. They should be as a regulatory incentive specifically.
I think
I think that's where you're somewhere else.
Yeah, I think
Is
it's
that-
Yeah.
someplace else in here when we get into,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of it.
I think it's actually under housing section where it talks about impact fees. So what do you mean by impact, like for them to relook at what like they're doing now?
No,
or-
as a way to attain workforce attainable housing as a regulatory incentive, the development impact fees.
We can't do that because that would be considered a gift. And as a government body, we can't do that. We can't waive impact fees. So,
Weird state language that makes it hard.
State control.
Not hard. I mean, it's hard. Harder. Not impossible.
All right. Any more on, okay, James.
There you go.
So on 2.1, strategy 2.1, has there been a housing needs assessment done in the past? Do you have an old one?
yes, there was one done a long time ago. So we're updating in the process of, they got a grant to update that.
Would it be appropriate to put a link to that if somebody wanted to research it and look at differences and stuff? Was that appropriate or not really in this setting?
It was done in 2017, so lots changed since then. But I mean, in the text document, we can
Well,
add a
yeah,
link
no,
if we
you-
have it
you-
available.
Yeah, you have links in other parts
Yeah.
in blue, so I don't know if
It
that-
wouldn't be in the goals and strategies; it'd be in the text. So
Yes.
we'll look at. Yeah. So I think there's a mention. There was a study done that we can, if we have it available, to put a link on.
Yeah,
we'll
if
do
somebody wanted to review it and compare.
Sure.
2.5, who sets this up? Providing the
City council.
city council does that?
Yeah, through the city's water policy, council adopts a budget
Okay.
twice a year, a budget for a certain amount. That would be one way to do it.
Okay, any more recommended changes for strategies and goals in this section?
Well, next is fire department. Anything under the fire department?
What a shock. I have something to say. Goal 2, implement strategic work plan, a link, and I made a note, page 19. Goal 2, implement strategic work plan, just a link to it.
Okay, I think.
Then the other is workforce supporting our people. Maybe mention something in there about working with attainable housing initiatives.
Okay.
And the last thing is the relationship with the Central Arizona Fire and Medical Group. I mean, the city of Prescott and CAFMA have a pretty tight relationship and of reciprocity, and I think that that's a real feather in the cap of both organizations and should probably be celebrated in here.
So the CAFMA mentioned
CAFMA mentioned.
in the document you need, or in the goal or
Someplace.
strategy.
Someplace.
Okay, CAFMA. Okay.
just a general comment. When I read this, the fire department section, I found it to be the weakest section in the book.
And that's all the language is from their strategic plan.
When I read the text, the why part, the key takeaways are we don't have enough people, money, and facilities. That's what this says.
That was the intent.
Yeah.
Then they did a good job.
Yeah, and so, do our goals and strategies specifically speak to that?
I think
I see a lot of holding hands, a lot of make nice words, but I don't see any concrete, deliberate actions that fix that problem.
if I may say something, things like implement, strategic plan, work plan, that's an actual action. And if we had the access to that strategic work plan, it would be fleshed out that you would see the amount of actions that are included within that. Several of things in here talk about fairly specific actions that they'd like to take place and into, community relationships. So I, for one, think that the fire department that created this, they know themselves better than we do. And I'm willing to be able to stand behind them and say, this is good. Here's a couple things I think you need to add to it. But other than that, it's a good plan.
Okay. Next, what do we have?
Environmental planning.
Okay, any recommended changes, goals, and strategies for environmental planning?
Page 21. Well, that's environmental, water quality. Strategy 1.4. If I remember correctly in the presentation that we had, instead of going from 1/2 inch to 1 inch, we agreed on 0.75 inches.
Okay. Instead of 1 inch.
Yeah, instead of 1/2 inch to 1 inch.
Okay.
Okay, and that's for the flushing, the first flush.
Okay.
And let's see, and then strategy 1.6. Redevelopment is required to retrofit existing stormwaters. Well, I think that, requiring all existing stormwaters, redevelopment would be necessary to retrofit all stormwater stuff. And by doing that, what you're doing, in my mind, thinking that saying you're required to do that means that we're suggesting that the city council adopt a policy of going back and redoing all the stormwater stuff. And that is a financial directive and frankly a burden. And I think that the council is best in the best position to be able to decide when, and how that should all be done in accordance along with staff. So that's why I said would be necessary. Redevelopment would be necessary to retrofit existing stormwater infrastructure to address first flush problems.
Okay.
Ralph?
Ralph Hess. On page 20, strategy 1.1, and this is going to be a comment that I'm going to be applying through much of this draft. You use the word encourage the upgrade to EPA approved, and I find the term encourage used quite a bit. And one of our concerns that we've expressed on many occasions is to make this more of a enforceable document. It's not going to be enforceable, but to make it a stronger document. And so either change that to incentivize or some word that's going to be more than just encouraging people to do something.
Yeah, I'm with Ralph on that one.
Okay, we could put incentivize instead of encourage. That makes better sense. Okay, or another.
That sounds good. Yeah, so long as we stay away from the word require.
Yes.
Kind of getting tired of requirements. You have to do this and you have to do that. Incentivize sounds great.
Okay.
Jim Huffman. Trivia is goal 2. How about adding the word identify and promote? Because I think we need to look at alternatives there. And you can drop the in order in that sentence.
Jim, where are you?
Oh, page 20, goal 2.
Read it the way you think it ought to be.
identify and promote alternative transportation strategies to reduce vehicle emissions.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, anything else under environmental planning?
All right.
Page 21, what does GSI mean? I'm not sure what that is.
Green stormwater infrastructure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, yeah, actually,
It's actually
on
right.
page 21, green infrastructure is not GSI. Yeah.
Oh. Oh, I think I fixed that. Oh, that's something we fixed. That's somewhere else.
That's right. It's explained on the next page under goal 2, green stormwater infrastructure is GSI. So on page 21 where it says green infrastructure, that's something different. So that GSI doesn't apply there, but it does apply on page 22, goal 2.
We'll take that GSI off the green infrastructure on the beginning of that.
There we go.
Yes. Okay. That'll
I'm happy
clarify
with
that. Because it's actually green stormwater, so it's different. Yeah.
Tammy, on page 22, the second paragraph, I thought that should go up front. That should be moved earlier into the,
It says the goal of.
yes, yes.
First. What do you think?
You speak to it early on, but
Okay. We can move it to the beginning of that section.
I don't care.
Okay.
Tom Riley, you have something?
Yeah, Goal 1, Strategy 1.1,
Page 22.
page 22. You have lots greater than quarter acre in size. I think that's a little small. And I'd like to see that moved up to at least a half an acre or an acre. In particular, that could have some unintended consequences in infill development, where an infill lot that's, 2/3 of an acre, may be required. This could be interpreted that they are required to improve the infrastructure within that lot or adjacent to that lot. And I really don't think that that's consistent with what some of the other things where we're encouraging development in existing
You want
areas.
a half acre?
I'd say a half acre to an acre at least.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll ask Matt about that, what he meant for that.
Yeah.
The part that I like is it starts with the word investigate. In other words, it's not saying require or anything like that. This is investigate.
Yeah, but if you start investigating an assault, you're going to end up investigating an assault. You're not going to change that. So I would say, again, the quarter acre in size, that's the kind of a detail that it's too easy to get assimilated across the board and absorbed.
Okay. So you're going to discuss that with who?
Matt Colleen.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. Because the thing is I understand what Tom's saying, because quarter acre is pretty small, yet with this, many lots in the city have such a slope on them that a quarter acre lot can dump a lot of water in a thunderstorm. So I think discussing it with Matt is a good idea.
No? Yeah. Are you good? Keep track? Oh, thank you.
Okay. Next.
Just one more, sorry. Strategy 2.2, page 22. Incorporate GSI into all municipal facilities and parks. I'd say where feasible. No, I'd say where feasible, just point, period.
Okay.
Because there's some parks that are, you really can't do that with.
Question, what is CD, this is strategy 1.3, what is CDBG funds?
Community Development Block Grant.
Okay.
It's federal grant money that we get. It's a fairly limited purpose and may not be something that we can spend much on in this process.
I'd prefer to just spell it out.
Tom,
Okay.
why,
Jason.
can you give an example of when that might not be feasible for some of the parks and municipal facilities?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that to try to retrofit Granite Creek Park, to try to retrofit, what's the one up in out on off Rosser, Pepper Tree Park. There's another one over on Josephine.
And what is it? Is it the elevation or what? Because it just would seem that the city on the city-owned property would be a great opportunity to do modeling and set an example. So, you know, if we're looking to try and exclude rather than show we're even under difficult circumstances, it could be possible. So.
Well, I think that's why I want to say where feasible. I mean, that means that you explore the possibility of it, but something like, and I can't, Pepper Tree Park, which is up back of Taylor Hicks, it's a very, very small park in a very dense neighborhood. And if you were to try to retrofit that park, there could be potentially negative impacts on the surrounding property owners. That's why I say you study the feasibility of it and see what those impacts would be prior to just saying, you know, thou shalt.
Okay. We're feasible with a study.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Any more?
Water resources? Anything under water resources?
Yeah. You left a lot out.
Okay.
And I know I commented and complimented you on the fact that you made this very lean compared to what we've been reviewing. And I want you to continue to do that kind of a thing. I think you did well. There's a couple of things in here, though, in water resources that I'm wondering if we probably need to include. And that would be such things as regional water resources and perhaps even consider a regional water committee. Not a water advisory committee or something like that that's comprised of all the different municipalities in the county, that people get together. They have no authority really, but they can get together and at least start the conversation in between the various municipalities and the county to talk about water resources collectively as opposed to individually. I think that might be something to consider putting forward in here.
Because I know that's something they're doing now as a regional, trying to start.
They're trying to start something like that. That's why I say let's give them a boost up and say in the general plan and try to put that in there.
Okay.
Okay, so you're recommending a goal, a new goal, or a new strategy?
So probably create a new regional water committee and study, or I'll talk with Brian because I know they had some stuff they were
Under
working
regional
with.
water planning on page 30 would probably be the most appropriate place to put that.
Okay. Oh, okay. Here it is.
Where are we at?
So
I've
that
lost
would be
track
an
of.
additional strategy then?
30.
I'm sorry.
How did we get to page 30?
No, I just jumped there. We're on page 25 on water resources, and I'm addressing some of the concerns that I have in general.
Thank you.
About the water resources.
Right. So he's recommending an additional strategy to goal 2 on page 30.
Okay.
To address one of the
Understand.
issues.
Now I'm with you now. Thank
Okay.
you.
There are 3 other things that I'd like to mention, and I'm not quite sure where to put those, which is why I don't have them related to goals, but just general comments. One is water resources conservation. I'd like to have, the city has done an outstanding job of promoting water conservation, and I think at least a mention of that and the continuing of that needs to happen someplace in this chapter. Recharge is another thing that I think needs to be addressed, and how we're doing recharge. We talked about the first flush and all that kind of good stuff. Recharge is something else that someplace in here needs to be at least discussed and, referred back to the first flush issue that we talked about earlier. All of this could probably.
Goal 3.
And the reason I didn't put it in any one of these because I'm not quite sure which one it fit under.
Yeah, water resource model, develop a long-term, that links both. So under goal 3, on page 32, continue forward planning to serve existing and future supplies with available to be acquired supply types, exercise and improve the city's warm model data, develop a long-term management plan that links both the ADWR requirements and city needs for secure, sustainable, sufficient water supplies, investigate and commence planning for future types of such stormwater So maybe that under strategy point 3.3
Sure, that'd be
with,
one.
with a regional water.
Yeah. Yes, that would be very good. And the last one was, well, that's sort of, I was going to reckon back to resilient systems, looking for various water. I think we already addressed that.
While you're looking for that, I have a couple of comments.
I'm done for now.
I think, in my view, water resources is probably one of the key pieces of this plan. I think the citizens intuitively ask themselves, do we have enough water or not? Do I want to invest in this community? Do we have enough water going forward? And I think this plan needs to say that. Do we have enough water? And what I read in this plan is that basically we're going to pump more groundwater and use stormwater with no concrete evidence that we're ever going to get to safe yield. So I think we really need to tighten this up. Do we have enough water or not going forward for 10 years or 100 years or whatever? And what's our plan? We're going to drill some more wells?
Do you think those are questions that we can answer today in
I
this
think
room?
the public needs to know what we have a
it's in
plan.
there. But that's why we're going to
Yeah.
develop a long-term management plan that links both the ADWR requirements and the city needs for secure, sustainable, and sufficient water supplies. That's something they're starting to work on, is a long-term management plan. So that's a goal and a strategy in here.
How that gets implemented is not in the purview of this committee.
When I joined this committee, day one, the first question I asked was, who's this plan for?
City of Prescott citizens.
Okay, it's for the citizens. It's for the city. It's for everybody. It's for.
So how is this not addressing?
So if we're doing a plan for the next 10 years, I think it's imperative that we know what we're going to do with water resources.
Well, this was written by Water Resources Department
if-
and the Water Issues
So if they were
Subcommittee.
sitting here, I'd ask the same question.
That's why they're
Do
going
we
to
have enough water or not?
That's why they're going to develop a long-term management plan. That's something that they've been wanting to talk about in the works, but they are starting to actually start doing that now. So that's a short-term goal. That's the responsibility of Water Resources. And then when they complete it, that long-term, like we can put a complete date on here, it says it's completed. Then it's going to be up to that plan to say how it's going to be implemented.
So we got a plan for a plan.
That's a more specific. That's a specific plans because this is the 30,000 foot view. That's the more
specific.
We're at the 30,000 foot view. That's more specific.
This topic is probably one of the most important things this city faces, period.
Totally agree.
But read the goals and strategies and make sure the goals and strategies are
You can read my
fulfilling.
comments. I've read many of them.
But that's not under goals and strategies. That's in the text. Are the goals and strategies addressing your concerns?
No.
Then what's your suggestion? Which goal needs to be updated? Which strategy needs to be
Back to the beginning
updated?
again. Tell me what this section says. What is it? Where are we headed? What are we trying to accomplish with this section?
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Sure.
I'm pretty clear on where we're headed.
Yeah.
I'm very clear on where we're headed. And frankly, the information that you're looking for is already in the narrative. You know, as for terms, do we have enough water? It's all spelled out.
It says we don't.
Page 27.
It says we don't have enough water, Tom.
Well,
It says we're never going to get to safe yield.
and so what is your, give
what
me your
does that mean?
suggestion, Tom.
What does that mean?
So what would you like in the general plan to address your
I'd like
concerns?
the narrative to say that this is a very important topic and that we're looking for a alternate water source because we have a shortfall.
Page 28, page 29,
Page 32.
Yep.
3.
Yep.
32. Pretty sure the same one's up.
Yeah. I think all of that is being addressed in this.
It is.
Terry, when I read this, I felt that the that this would be incomprehensible to the average citizen. I read it a couple times. I just felt it was just way too ambiguous and didn't really speak to the key issue. It's just my personal feeling.
Okay.
Maybe we ought to take a consensus of the members of the commission and find out, are they happy with the wording it is, or do we need to make some changes as Tom's talking about? Instead of just continuing this here, we need to bring it to fruition.
I'm happy with the way it is. I think that water, like you say, Tom, is one of the most important things. You know, whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting, and I mean, we could fight over water till the end of times, and we probably will long after we've all turned to dust in the ground. They'll still be fighting over water, and I think that we have the Prescott Active Management Area and many, many people that are addressing all the issues that you're bringing up, Tom, and they are addressed in this section of the general plan and who's working on it and what they're working toward. But it's certainly not something that we can specifically say, you need to do this, this, and this in the general plan, because like Tammy says, this is the 30,000-foot view, and there are many, many good people working on this issue and fighting over it, and they'll be fighting over it till the end of times.
Chair, just
Mary.
following up on Dallin's suggestion, I'd add essentially the same, that I think the descriptive narrative that's in this plan is very nice, very nicely done. And to the extent that there isn't some two-sentence bullet point that somehow is going to incorporate everything that needs to be said is just an impossible idea. And I think to the extent that it takes some effort by somebody who might want to read through this to absorb it all, that it's a complex subject and can't really be boiled down to a bullet point that we can highlight at the start of each section, or at least not as far as the water is concerned.
Right.
So I'm quite content with the narrative as it's developed.
I agree with Mary. I think this is well-written, Tammy, and I think we can leave it the way it is unless you have specific changes to goals or strategies. We need to move on. JD.
JD, I'm just wondering, does this reflect the report that was sent in by the Citizens Water Advisory Committee?
That was given to Water Resources to implement, to use it as part of it. But this section was written by Water Resources and then reviewed by the Water Issues Subcommittee. So this is all the goals and strategies that was provided by the Water Resources and the Water Issues Subcommittee.
Okay, because we're so
And they were
lucky.
given, and Water Resources was given that report to try to see how they can
Okay.
include it in their
This means CWAG has been addressing this issue for, I don't know, close to 20 years, I think, and I think whatever information they provided, and they'll have a chance also to review this, and I think if they see anything that needs to be added to it, they're certainly going to be giving input during the public comment period.
So should this be part of the sustainability topic?
Oh, I think so. I think because they're big on the management area and
It's not in there.
the recharge and they're so much more expert than I can even communicate at this time, but they're very, very much on top of our water issues.
Okay. James.
So just looking at the three goals, this is Jim McCarver. I think those three bullets narrow it down so that you get, if you look at those three, that's our good approach to water, and then all the strategies. On strategy 1.2, I was wondering if, page 28, if we should, where it says meet ADWR regulatory requirements, should we put a link to what those are? I'm assuming that's a state edict or something. So maybe, because it would be, if you want to drill down and go down that rabbit hole, then just put a link there. And then I just had one question, page 32. This is information for me. It's not any change. No, in the paragraph that's got the different type. Note that the city's service area extends beyond its general plan area. Where is that extension? Is that
Chino and outlying areas
that you
outside
okay? Yeah, that area there. Is that the only place?
and to the west, and then some other developments outside the city.
You mean like Stringfield Ranch? Yeah, that's the other thought that I had. But
that's-
Mountain Club, is that because that's county? Do we provide water to them too?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
There's some other developments outside the city that we provide water to previously.
When I read this topic, I stopped at figure 3, and I did some quick arithmetic, and I said, okay, do we have 1,452,900 acre feet of water?
Where does it say that?
Yeah, it's a 100-year plan. On page 27, the box, okay, basically says, do we have a 100-year plan? And how do we know that we have 1,452,900 acre feet of water?
That's 14,500.
No, multiply that times 100 years.
It's 14,000, not 14 million, not 1.
Again, for 100 years.
Yeah,
This isn't for,
established.
that doesn't say that. Is that lifetime? Is that yearly? It's not quantified.
This is the amount of water that's allocated to the city of Prescott from ADWR to manage. So we're saying that this is how they manage. So we're allocated this much water by the state to manage for the city of Prescott. And that's what they're,
Yeah, I'm not trying to be difficult here. What I'm trying to suggest is that this is a superordinate objective.
I was going to.
This is top the list. Do we have enough water to sustain this city going forward? And that's what
According
I'd
to
like to
the people who regulate our water, because we don't regulate it, and that's the Arizona Department of Water Resources, according to their calculations, we do have enough water to be able to move forward, and we do have a 100-year certificate for up to, actually, I think it's much larger than this, about 16,000 acre feet.
No, we don't have safe yield, Tom. You're wrong there.
Well,
we're not
that
in a
is
safe
not,
yield place.
I'll tell you, Tom, there is a difference between water law, water allocations, and water in the ground. And you really need to educate yourself as to what those differences are in order to be able to argue the point.
I'd be happy to discuss it with you offline.
Okay, if we do not have any more specific recommendations for goals or strategies in this section, let's move on to the next section. Otherwise, we can argue water until the end of times. Any other recommendations for goals or strategies on the
Climate and
sustainability section?
so climate and energy was the last section,
Climate energy, okay. Climate and energy.
which is page 36 and 37. It starts at 35, sorry. These are, these goals and strategies they're recommended by the Klimas group, and then you guys have modified them. So this is what has come out of that.
Strategy 2.4, page 36. Might want to reference, take a look at the International Residential Code. There's also the Energy Code. And the Energy Code addresses a lot of the issues that you're trying to do there. So instead of changing the International Residential Code, you might want to just reference the Energy Code because it does that. They do that.
Energy code.
Okay, and again, I'm going to go to goal number 4, and I'm going to channel Ralph here on strategy 4.1, and take out the word encourage and put in incentivize.
Huffman here, strategy 1.4. Who is it that is developing a toolkit? I mean, it sounds like something APS would do or some.
mean, who's going to create the toolbox, the toolkit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
That's something we'll have to figure out if it moves forward.
Okay.
Yes. As we start filling out who's responsible for those.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Ralph?
Ralph Hess, on page 36, strategy 3.3. The use of the word partner here is going to be another comment you're going to see me addressing throughout this draft. I don't know that partner is the right word. When you're discussing types of collaborations with the private sector or some type of arrangement, I don't see it as a partnership, and I think it's being misused throughout this draft.
What would you suggest?
Work, you want to just say work with? Collaborate?
Yeah, most of the instances when I saw it through the draft, I thought collaborations was the better term.
Okay, sounds good.
It's too big.
A lot of syllables.
Anything else under climate and energy?
Words.
Nope.
Okay,
Nope.
all right, so
Okay.
collab.
Okay, I think we're done with that chapter.
Okay, community connected.
Okay, so we have Joanne. She's not here anymore. Okay, never mind. She wanted to speak, but she left.
Okay,
Okay,
We're driving them all away.
all right, okay,
Don Michaelman,
Oh,
page
sorry.
40.
Okay, hold on a second. I
All
need to, so on IT, can you bring up number 2, community connected, please? Okay, go ahead.
Going back to the comment made at the beginning of the meeting, what do we want to do about the term sun-dog connector? Do we say yay, nay, ignore it, or what?
What we could do is, because this is referencing the old plan, we'll see if, I'll try to get an update from SIMPO when their next plan is going to, because their transportation plan is starting right now, and to see what their anticipated completion date is, and maybe we update this once we see what might come out of the the new transportation study.
Chair, Mary
Mary?
Frederickson. I mentioned this when we were going through this section the first time, and I don't see it included here, so I'll make my pitch again. I think we need to include a statement in this section that I think would resolve the earlier problem where some people took the mention of sundog and ran with it because there was mention of the sundog in the general plan because SIMPO mentioned it. And I think we need some kind of statement in here that says the SIMPO recommendations maybe are advisory only to its client members, and that such recommendations do not indicate that these routes have been approved to move forward. Because I think that would put a break between what SIMPO is recommending and prevent somebody from saying, well, it's here in the general plan, SIMPO recommends it, and it's in the general plan, so I guess we're doing it.
no, that's not what this says, and I think this is just addressing that Prescott is a member of SIMPO, so is Chino Valley, so is Prescott Valley, so is Dewey Humboldt, and the county in between that are not these, and they're all working together on the regional transportation plan, and I think we should just leave it up to the regional transportation plan. If it includes a mention of Sundog Connector, we're just making a statement of fact that it includes the Sundog
Right,
Connector.
but by referencing it here in the general plan without making any kind of break between SIMPO recommendations, because it says the 2020 study recommends, and it gives a laundry list, Sundog is one of them. If there's no indication that there is a difference between what SIMPO recommends and what the city of Prescott or any of the other clients of SIMPO might approve eventually.
The 2020 study, was that SIMPO's? Was that, that was SIMPO's? Okay, so we just say the 2020 SIMPO study recommends.
That's what it says.
That's what.
I promised Vinny I would not get into any kind of a defense of the Sundog corridor. But my understanding is that SIMPO was instructed by the executive board, which is made up of the representatives from all of the municipalities that you just spoke of, as well as the county, to conduct the study. They conducted the study, and the decision was that it's a no build at this time.
Right. Because they don't have any money.
That's it. I mean,
Right. Yeah, or the political.
So what we could also do is, starting on page 39, so we could leave what's on page 3 at the bottom. The regional transportation plan establishes this stuff, updated every 5 years. And then over the last 20 years, this is what's been done. And then that's it. And don't mention, take out the part where we talk about additional recommended roadway improvements. We can just take that out.
Sure. Does that work for everybody? Okay.
Last sentence.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is it again?
So on page 40, where on the last sentence on the first paragraph, where it says additional recommended roadway improvements include the extension and all that stuff, we'll just take that out. But we want to show that the accomplishments they've done over the last, so many years with the plan. So that's what the Bike and Ped Committee that did this section of the transportation section wanted, that this is what the regional transportation plan is, and this is what that's done over the last 20 years. And then the rest, the recommended roadway improvements, we'll take out because they're updating the plan. And we could just mention that further, goals or something will be in any updated plans.
So you're taking out that whole last sentence
Yep.
of that first paragraph on page 40?
Yep.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
You can include language that indicates SIMPO continues to.
But it is, it's updated every 5 years.
Right,
Yeah,
it does.
It's already here.
It does.
It's already in there.
Updated approximately every 5 years is the blueprint for long-term regional transportation planning and improvements. And then this is what they've done, and then that's it. Then we just take that out so it won't be a topic of conversation anymore.
2 sentences there.
Okay,
I-
starting at additional.
I will just stress again,
Where's the?
SIMPO isn't the villain in this situation. SIMPO was instructed to gather information, and they did so.
I don't think anybody's calling them a villain.
Okay.
Yeah, they are.
Maybe.
So, but basically what happened is that out of the transportation study, these are the top things that came out of the study. Which one do we want to look at further? Sundog came out on top rather than the other one, because the other one we knew that was not doable. And there was, at the time when Sundog came forward, there was interest in Unit 9 and Storm Ranch was being developed. So that's the reason why that came to the forefront. Okay.
I think Don's got a good point. Actually, you want to delete everything after it says State Route 89 interchanges.
Yes.
So starting with the word additional, that all goes.
Yep, all that goes.
Okay.
So how much again is that?
Okay, so the part that's going to be taken out is the part that starts
Additional.
with the word additional after it says State Route 89 interchanges.
I think that'll take care of that
Okay.
conversation, I hope. Maybe. Okay, goals and strategies.
Whoops. Got one more, Tammy.
Okay.
Don Michael. Page 41.
Okay.
For clarity purposes, I would move the colored map to adjacent to Deep Well Ranch, because that's where it applies to. Right now, it looks like it applies to AED. Put a map in for AED.
Yeah, we have all that in the plan. Yes.
Okay.
This is just a
my mind?
formatting for this, but in the new plan, it is with that.
And the same page 41, under Arizona Eco Development, AED, the city of Prescott has reached a potential agreement. I think they have got an agreement, if I'm not mistaken.
We had an agreement, and now there's a disagreement, and we're working on a new potential agreement.
What's that going to cost us?
And that was at the time that they,
$150 million.
because it had been approved of the master plan, so. So anything under the goals and strategies for transportation?
Mr. Chair.
Ralph?
Yeah, to go back and comment on, or follow up on Tom Riley's comment, but the sentence there says a potential agreement.
What page are you on?
Oh, this is on 41. But it refers to the development agreement. So there is a development agreement. That's not potential. There's a disagreement over the performance on that agreement. That's what the dispute is now.
Yeah, technically he's right.
It's not a potential development agreement. That development agreement has been entered.
So you're saying take out the word potential?
Right.
Right, okay, all right.
Okay, anything under the goals and strategies for transportation? Okay, we'll go on to open space.
Yay. Page 51.
Yes, Tom.
I know we're only supposed to go to goals and strategies, but there's some stuff on page 51 that I'd like to address and see what the committee thinks about it. On page 51, the third bullet point, identifying and prioritizing open space efforts based upon prehistoric, historic, ecological, cultural, blah, 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 blah. And I said, and I would add, and balance with other community needs. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you slow your speech?
On the third bullet point on page 51, I would add to that, and balance with other community needs. So I think that open space, the pursuit of open space is very meritorious, but to pursue open space in lieu of a new police station or fire station or fixing roadways is not in the best interest of our community.
Ralph?
Yeah, Ralph Hess. There's always going to be a need to balance priorities for the city. I think, and in this particular bullet point, I interpret the prioritizing the open space efforts. This is the criteria: prehistoric, ecological, cultural, recreational, scenic, and economic values are the criteria for how you prioritize what you're going to spend for open space. I don't think it's referring to prioritizing open space against other community needs in this context.
I can see where you would see that, and I think that for clarity purposes, I would like to add in, on balance with other community needs, so we know that prioritizing open space is not point blank. Prioritizing what open spaces you're going to get, that's one thing. But also balancing those open spaces with community needs, I think, is an important inclusion.
Any other comments on that? JD?
I'm trying to think about how to organize, because there's several issues regarding open space that are of concern to me. Number one, I think at the last meeting there was, when we were talking about the zoning map and land use map, it became really clear that we have to delineate what's open space, what are parks and recreations, and all of that. The other thing that is really paramount to me is that the open space that we have now, we need to get into a means by which to protect it in perpetuity needs to be in the general plan. And along those lines, one of the things that I have suggested is that all of the city property, and Joe Baines came in with that map and he showed us the different properties that the city owned. I think it was a little over 100 pieces of property. And I think it needs to be categorized so that so we know when we're speaking about open space, that we know when we're talking about parks, that we know when we're talking about municipal buildings that are important, or that there be other property that that certainly could be utilized if there was a financial need that we needed to sell off some of the property. And I think that that kind of a structure, that kind of explanation needs to go to the public. I don't think it should be something that that is just taken for granted without different options. And I guess, I don't know if we're, just to kind of give you a little heads up when we get into the wildlife corridors, I was very fortunate to be able to, and this almost sounds like going to the other camp, but I'll bring it up now. On the 8th of this month, I was able to attend a meeting in Prescott Valley, and they're actually doing an amendment to their general plan to work with Game and Fish Department and hopefully make it a regional effort to have contiguous wildlife corridors that would stretch all the way from Chino Valley through Prescott and into Prescott Valley and beyond.
I think it's in here.
It's in
It is in here.
And so I think that's really important to consider when we're discussing open space, because there may need to be some land swaps or whatever with the open space. But at any rate, I'm going to defer some of my comments until the next meeting when I can get better prepared on this subject, because I really, as someone who's fought for what open space we've acquired for 20 years, I think certainly that there are other means by which we can find money for more schools or whatever. The other thing with our open space, in addition to protecting it in perpetuity, is the fact that there hasn't been anything in plan in terms of maintenance of it. And we talked about this really briefly last time. The Over the Hill Gang kind of takes care of that for us, but we can't just count on a volunteer organization to, in perpetuity, take care of open space.
I think
So
Mary might have some answers for you.
That'd be nice if I did, but I don't. I just wanted to swing back around to the last point Tom was making, Tom Riley, as far as modifying that third bullet point. I agree. Just saying prioritizing might give the impression that it is like the priority, the number one thing. Not that I don't think prioritizing open space isn't critical. I do. But I do agree that including some language in there about in balance with other city needs is important, just to avoid the suggestion that prioritizing means above anything else, we are prioritizing open space needs.
Does that work for you, Tammy?
and along those lines, and again, I've I've been talking to various people in the community, and I think at this point, the feeling is that we may not need to be out and buying more open space at this time, but I think the issue is protecting what we have.
I think when Joe Baines was here, he addressed a lot of that, was what's protected and what isn't.
At this time, there are only 3 portions of our open space that are protected under the city charter. That is Acker Park, Watson Lake, and Willow Lake.
Okay.
So all of the other property that we've acquired, including in the proposed Glassford Dales Regional Park,
So
it's not protected.
how would you add another strategy to,
Or did you read strategy 2.4?
yeah,
Yes, but I don't have the terminology at this time. I'd like to, but I would like something else to be definitely added, that we protect the existing open space that we have in perpetuity.
Did you read strategy 2.4?
Yeah.
And is there a way that that can be,
page 54,
54.
strategy 2.4.
I think this addresses what
That's
we're referring to.
that's exactly what
That
we
works.
need to do. We need a charter amendment, yes.
Okay, so
So it's there.
It's in there.
Okay, good.
All right,
good,
next, where are we going next?
anything else under open space?
Yes.
Okay, Tom? Or Ralph? Okay.
Yeah, I've got a couple. One is, let's see, I'm proposing adding Strategy 1.7 on page 53 to create an open space advisory commission. I think we used to have one before. Okay, Open Space Acquisition Advisory Commission. Wait till I'm done. You can talk then. So that didn't sound so good. Let's see. Then, and I'm going to add it also to Strategy 2.1. Probably doesn't have to be in both places. And under Strategy 3.3, I would propose adding, establish and maintain connectivity among newly annexed lands to provide wide and continuous corridors. Also, I'd add that to Strategy 3.6 and Strategy 1.1 on page 55.
What page?
55. So both in Strategy 3.3 and 3.6 on page 54 and Strategy 1.1 on page 55.
And you're suggesting, what's the language you're suggesting for those three?
Establish and maintain connectivity among newly annexed lands to provide wide and continuous corridors.
And what's the definition of wide? How about we? So you want to add that to each of those strategies, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so say it one more time so I can write this down, Ralph.
Establish and maintain connectivity among newly annexed lands to provide wide and continuous corridors.
Ralph, would you consider not using the word wide? I don't know what that means.
To provide continuous corridors.
Usable, effective, things like that.
I might be able to help on that.
It would be so site-specific.
Yeah. One of the things I'd like to add in this area is in conjunction with what Prescott Valley is doing in looking at their zoning and looking at wildlife corridor connectivity. I would like something put in here that the Arizona's Game and Fish Department would be included as a first, do they have a first distribution? First distribution for any development that would be considered for approval to determine whether or not it is in the path or crossed by a wildlife corridor. So in other words, when and I'm not wording this very well, I'm not speaking very well, but
Two different subjects going on at the same time. We have one subject and then you have a subject.
but this kind of ties in with what he's saying but in keeping the area.
Why don't you go and settle on Ralph and we go
Okay.
add to it.
Oh, okay, whatever.
I'd go along with Ralph's statement except for the word wide because it has no definition. We don't know what wide means. So the corridors.
Game and Fish could help determine.
Well, fine, then let them determine.
So
Not us.
what about under wildlife corridors? Well, because
Oh, yeah, because it is addressed.
What she's
It
talking.
is addressed, right. Tammy's on the right track here because
So
what
we
we're all
have-
talking about is it's in here.
Yeah, so collaborate with Arizona Game and Fish Department to develop and implement a best practice guide for wildlife corridors and crossings. And then there we could establish policies or something to maintain connectivity among, or something like that there. Because that's where, or the plan where, work with SIMPO and create a regional environmental study. Until we have that, an updated corridor plan, we don't know where they're going now. We know from the last two, but a lot's changed since then. So maybe because that's exactly what they're doing. They're saying, develop and implement best practice guide for wildlife corridors and crossings. That's what you're both talking about. So
Right.
we already kind of have it addressed in here,
Right.
but it's be with game and fish.
So basically, what we're saying is to protect the connectivity of both existing and future, and it's in here.
But I think it really needs to be brought in that game and fish when there are new developments that are going to be going through areas where there are wildlife corridors, that they be brought in that initial review.
So if you read strategy 1.1 under wildlife corridors, required developments to evaluate animal species within their development sites with AZ Game and Fish Department and create appropriate wildlife corridors through master plans and subdivision plats adjacent to open space and public lands.
Also, page
Yeah.
56.
Page 56.
1.5.
Yes, Don.
Yeah, so on 55.1.1 and on page 56, 1.5.
Yep, it's in there.
That's enough that would require that during that initial trial.
Well, no-
It doesn't need to be more specific in that first publication.
You have to remember, we're not making requirements here. We're making suggestions. The city council will have to amend the land development code in order to be able to make it a requirement, but we're recommending that they make it a requirement. So that's what we're doing. We're recommending those things here, and that's all that we do. We recommend things.
Okay, Ralph Hess. I've got a substitution for the word wide. Appropriate. If we use the word appropriate, which is in strategy 1.1 referencing Arizona Game and Fish, appropriate will allow the contours of the terrain and everything else to help develop exactly what type of connectivity you have.
I'm sure Game and Fish know what they're doing, and we really don't need to tell them.
Aren't they the ones that sent the antelope to Yuma?
Yeah.
And since we've been on these other strategies, I've got a couple others that I can bring up on page 56 to insert on strategy 1.5 and 1.7, where you talk about collaborate with the Arizona Game and Fish Department. I would add and local and national wildlife professionals. So we have the opportunity to take advantage of all of the expertise available to us. Oh, and I'd also add as strategy 1.8, implement a public awareness program promoting respect for wildlife.
Is that in your notes?
It is.
Thank you. Okay.
Just to tag on to what Ralph just mentioned, I was thinking it would be an add-on to 1.5, but really better if it was its own standalone 1.8, is that we include education for the public in regard to living with wildlife, and in particular, the wildlife that can cause trouble. I mean, we've had bears, mountain lions, big cats of various sizes, javelina, and I think it would be very worthwhile to put in an education component here for citizens to be aware that they're part of the solution and potentially part of the problem, but hopefully with education could stop being the one and go for the other.
What cow? I can't read.
Never
it.
mind.
Okay, anything else under wildlife corridors or open space?
I have one thing. No, didn't cover that, didn't cover that. On page 53, goal number 1, adopt strategic approach to open space acquisition opportunities and establish funding sources. There are many different sources of funding, and so I want to make sure that we look at those instead of just the taxpayer's pocketbook.
Tom, where are you?
Page 53.
5.3, goal number 1, adding to goal number 1, establish funding sources. Adopt a strategic approach to open space acquisition opportunities and establish funding sources.
Okay.
Again, I just want to clarify that. Is that just for acquisition? I think we also need to identify for maintenance of existing open spaces.
That could be a new strategy.
Because right now I don't think there isn't any.
Yeah, there's actually goal number 2 on page 53. Page 53, goal number 2, seek collaborative ventures among public-private partnerships and nonprofit sectors for expanding, improving, maintaining, and providing stewardship for open space.
Again, which one is?
Page 53, goal 2 at the very bottom. Page 53, goal 2 at the very bottom.
With more detail and strategy.
Then strategy 2.2, continue investigation of potential funding mechanisms such as general fund, taxes, sale tax, grant funding, and private donations for the purchase, improvements, and maintenance of open space and trails.
It's in there.
But doesn't there need to be something that's actually part of the city budget item?
No, because we're not saying we're going to find alternative
that.
funding.
We don't do that in this committee.
The city council,
30,000
that's
foot
above our pay
VJD,
grade.
that's too specific.
But that's just,
That's to say, continue investigation of potential funding mechanisms. Strategy 2.2 on page 54. 54, strategy 2.2. Continue investigation of potential funding mechanisms.
Now, what you would do with that is when the city gets into its budget cycle, is you'd stand up in front of the city council and you'd ask them to include in their budget from the general plan, page 54, strategy 2.2 and goal number 2. That's where you would put in your 2 cents for getting it into the budget.
but then that means that every budget cycle, it would have to go to the city council to ask for money.
Yes.
But it wouldn't be an automatic request every year.
Even roads makes a request every year.
Nothing's automatic.
Nothing, you can't do that from year to year.
Okay,
There are no entitlements in the city budget.
okay.
Everybody every year has to make a request.
It's just that people keep thinking in terms of buying. They don't think in terms of taking care of, and that's just.
Okay. Anything else
Okay,
for
next.
open space or wildlife corridors? Digital connectivity. Plan for new technology. OTARDs. Sorry. Oh, you came back. Oh, okay. Before we get here, Joanne.
Hi, I'm Joanne Ohlers, Save the Dells, 2911 East Granite Gardens Drive, Prescott. I want to thank everyone for your comments today involving the open space and wildlife corridors sections. And really, most everything was addressed. I do have some other things that I might maybe send in later. But right now, my question is about how do the public comments become incorporated that have already been submitted to Tammy or other, I guess would be to Tammy, the things that we've sent in, they're not probably in the draft today. I noticed a couple things that had changed, maybe some more language about wildlife, but that might have been based on maybe what the committee members had submitted. So those public comments and written words would be brought to the, incorporated after the first public comment period, or how does that work?
We're not there yet, but we have a 60-day required public comment period. We're going to have different ways of people to provide comments. And then after the 60-day comment period, we're going to go through all the comments, see what needs to be updated in the plan, and see what we can implement.
Okay.
But then it goes to, it's easy.
But basically, the comments we received during that time frame come back to this body for the committee to consider including them or not including them.
Okay. And question? So I maybe jumped the gun by sending things in. Should they be resent during another time period? You have it all? Okay. All right. That's it for now. Oh, I do have one thing I have to say, though. There was a kind of a glaring, maybe inconsistency in it must be in the open space part. It talks about Granite Dells Regional Park and Preserve in one spot, and it talks about Glassford Dells Regional Park in another spot. And I don't have the page number to give you to today, but would like to, maybe I'll get back with you and I'll target that according to what page and section it's in. But that language about the park and also language about open space definitions is something that needs to be nailed down, I think, pretty specifically, because there is some confusion about how the open space lands are designated as opposed to parks, open space, and so forth. And I know you talked about that earlier in the meeting, but the Glassford Dells label is maybe used a little inconsistently. So we'll check that out. Thank you very much.
Ralph?
Ralph Hess. In my notes, I make reference to the Glassford Dells Recreation or Regional Park and Preserve, but it didn't. I figured you'd see it in the notes, and
Yep.
it's not really, I think, a controversial issue. So didn't bring it up. I only want to bring up controversial issues.
Okay, digital connectivity. Do we have any suggestions on goals and strategies?
Chairman Huffman here. I would add one strategy or action, whatever you want to call it. Explore available funding to improve digital connectivity. In other words, there's a lot of advanced work that can be looked into. And this is kind of following on a statement that starts on page 56 at the bottom. Subsequent federal and state dollars have flowed to increase broadband connectivity, et cetera. So see if we can do something there. Maybe add a strategy in there.
To get some of that money that we haven't been getting, you're saying? Okay.
Exactly. And with that, I've got it.
Okay.
You got to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we are at 4:17.
Goodbye.
Do we?
Get out of here.
So you guys are done for today, I guess. I'm guessing. Okay, I understand.
Mr. Chair,
Ralph?
if we're going to end, I do have a comment on this portion.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and with strategy 1.5, I'm suggesting inserting between encourage and the, or unless you're going to change encourage again to something like facilitate, but between the way it's written here, between encourage and the, add public participation and establishing locations for. Now, I know that you have meetings through when you deal with this, but I like to have in the plan that it suggests public participation.
Okay.
I have a little challenge with that one. Being on planning and zoning and having these cell towers coming in, the public already participates in cell towers to a great deal.
Right.
So he's just
Yeah.
reiterating what already is happening.
Yeah, one of almost always they exceed the height limit of the district they're in because the height limits for most districts are based on the building size rather than antennas. So they always trigger what's called a special use permit, which is a public process with a lot of notification. It is theoretically possible to come in at the height of the district, though, and avoid that process.
But rarely happens because the way cell towers are, you trying to get multiple carriers. You've got AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. You want all three providers on the same tower to save money, because this is all about money. And if you're going to put all three providers on the same tower, you're going to need a tall tower, which is going to automatically trigger all the public input on everything, because it's going to require a variance to get the tall tower that fits all three providers. So it's in there. It's automatically in there.
Okay, Ralph Hess. So it's not controversial, but we can put it in there as a expression of the city's general plan, encouraging public participation as much as possible.
So the next meeting.
Tammy, sorry.
Yeah.
Just to add on to Ralph, I would encourage that kind of additional language as well, because the people who are against any new siting of towers, they don't need any encouragement to engage in public participation. They will
Yep. The
flood
no
the room.
stickers will show up in force every time.
Right, but
With their cell phones.
but by
With their
encouraging
cell phones, right.
by encouraging public participation, you might get in people who might be able or willing to stand up and say, yes, but my coverage stinks, and I really would like to see a new tower somewhere in my neighborhood. So maybe with some encouragement, we'd get both sides of the argument to be participating.
Right.
Okay.
Because it's obviously a need to have the digital connectivity, and you can't get cell service if you don't have a cell antenna somewhere, and it's got to be tall enough that it's not blocked by a mountain.
And this isn't just about cell towers, it's also about just broadband connectivity,
Right.
because that's a
Yep.
huge issue in
Yep.
the county, throughout the region, so.
So when's our next meeting?
The 31st, July 31st, in this room, 2 o'clock. We'll start with great places and neighborhoods.
My God, we got through more of it today than I thought where we started.
So we're starting great places.
Yes.
Sorry.
So this
no,
next,
you,
so
Mary.
we got 1, 2, 3, 4 more sections to go through. We only
Kind of, yeah.
got through 2 sections.
Yeah, but the last 2 are major plan amendments and then the implementation, so I mean, there might not be that much
Okay.
on that one, but.
And also for the next meeting, reread this section. I'm sure everybody's already read it once. Reread this section and try to concentrate on goals and strategies, and think about what needs to be changed. And if it's in there, it's kind of like a soup commercial. It's in there. Many of the items that were brought up today were already in the general plan. And, a lot of time was spent on semantics. Let's try to stick to the nuts and bolts of goals and strategies.
I want to thank Tammy for all the effort she's put into this.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a lot of love that went into this.
I know, right?
I didn't say
Okay.
hate, I said love.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Ralph?
appreciate it. I really appreciate it. And you guys have put a lot of work into this, and you guys are part of the process. I just brought you some information from others, and you guys have created it into what it is today.
No. There's a tremendous amount of work. I'm reading through this.
We all love each other.
I'll tell you what, I was reading through this. I'm going, wow, this is really good. This is really good. And I was, it's like, but we have a lot of people that have access to grind and like try to do some of the grinding at home and do just, stick to the important stuff when we come in here. Ralph, go ahead.
Yeah, Ralph Hess. Before we adjourn, I didn't want to respond rashly when we decided to change the non-discrimination language and render it effectively meaningless from my perspective. But it's an integrity issue for me. And when the 2 members of the Martin Luther King Jr. Committee were here, this committee agreed with them to the language that was going to be included in that introduction. And then when they're not here, this committee decides 7-3 to exclude that which was agreed with them. And to me, that's a violation of the integrity of this committee. And for several moments, probably at least half an hour, maybe an hour, I really wasn't paying attention to much of what was going on because I was dealing with the idea that, do I want to be part of a committee that lacks the integrity to stick to an agreement that it had with these people before, or at least wait until they were here and explain to them why they're not going to abide by the agreement? But so I didn't act rashly, and that's after contemplation. Thank you.
Can we revisit it at the next meeting and invite them?
I've already advised them.
Do we want to revisit this or not? Give Mary the microphone, please.
I'll just say, the lack of integrity is, in my view, is not the fact that you're not all speaking what you truly believe should be in the general plan. The lack of integrity is coming to an agreement with the group, and then when they're not here, violating that agreement.
That's where my disagreement is. I don't believe we came to an agreement when the MLK committee was here.
I agree with Ralph. We agreed. We changed it. They stood there and listened to it. And this is what we presented. This is what we presented to them that we would agree to. And that's the reason I voted to keep it the way it was, because that is what we agreed to. If we're going to disagree with that, we need to invite them back and tell them to their face why.
I would be happy to say anything to anybody's face. But no, I don't. We just have different memories of that moment.
It's on film. Or video.
Andre?
Like I said before earlier, I wasn't here during that meeting, but so I'd be glad to address them or meet with them. Perhaps Ralph and I could meet with them if you'd like to, or we can invite them back. I'm open to either one.
And I have no objections to them coming back, and we can discuss it with them again. At the next meeting, put it on the agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
First item on the agenda.
An unnecessary consistency is the hobgoblin of the small mind. Ralph Waldo Emerson.
So the thing is I think I think we needed to bring it up with them again, because obviously the way it reads right now, even with the one word change we made at the meeting when they were here, people are still uncomfortable with it, and we need to come up with something that's comfortable for everybody. So let's put it on the agenda for the next meeting. Okay? All right. Anything else?
And I'll put it in with what it says now and what the proposed changes were. So we'll have it on the screen that
Sure.
they can see.
That sounds good.
Both that whole paragraph there.
Okay. Anything else? Going once, going twice? Meeting adjourned.